Okay. Good evening, everybody. Thank you all for coming. We're going to get started. I'm sure people are going to drift in as we go along, but we're going to get started. So, my name is Ronnie Minter, and thank you for coming to the Forgotten Population, A Call to Action. And we're going to be talking primarily about incarcerated and formerly incarcerated women. We were hoping to have this discussion regarding Albany, Rensselaer, Schenectady, Watervliet, the counties, the areas that are surrounding, sort of like, I guess you want to say like the Tri-City type area. And so how that looks and for women, and hopefully we can generate a conversation like this won't be the first one, having more conversations about how we can better serve that population. So a little bit about myself. I'm formerly incarcerated myself, and in 2002, I started a group in Albion Correctional Facility called Sisters Healing Old Wounds. There was no group that the women could actually really have a conversation about past traumas. At that time, there was no trauma program in DOCS. And so we were able to bring Sisters Healing Old Wounds, we call it SHOW for short, up under the grant that we had from the AIDS Institute, and so the HIV grant, so we brought that up under there. Till this day, Sisters Healing Old Wounds group is still going on in Albion Correctional Facility, and it has the longest waiting list for a volunteer program in DOCS. Fast forward, I moved to Albany in 2005. I like to joke and say Father Young kidnapped me and brought me here. I'm not from here, I'm from Queens, and I made my home here then. After working for Father Young for a number of years, in 2011, I reached out to the AIDS Institute, asked them if I could have the name Sisters Healing Old Wounds, and I started my own little 501c3 in 2011 called Sisters Healing Old Wounds Show. So we've basically been based out of Albany, but we service the state of New York. For years, we were based at Bethany Reformed Church at 760 New Scotland, and just recently, we kind of left that spot and we're kind of like floating, looking for another spot. But we still do work to help women who are touched by the criminal justice system. And so, with that being said, I'm going to pass the mic over so you can meet my co-facilitator for tonight.
Hello, everyone. My name is Andromeda. I'm the Director of Programs at the Pride Center of the Capital Region. I met Ronnie at a think tank in a yoga studio, random, right? And we realized that we had some similar passions with wanting to help the community, especially women of color, and in the LGBTQ population. So her jumping around from spot to spot with finding a new location for her nonprofit she stumbled upon, I offered Pride Center as being one of those locations, and we decided to collaborate on this endeavor and wanting to tackle this discussion, and hopefully this is one of many. The LGBTQ population is underserved while incarcerated. We're gathered here to discuss why there's a need to address this forgotten population. Pride Center would like to serve as an official safe space for LGBTQ women to visit upon release so that they can utilize our free resources and services, which we have over, some of them, we have over 150 resources, and they include physical, mental, legal, whatever it is, we have it. We have peer support groups from women's groups, free food pantry, everything, free counseling, case management, resume building, mock interviews, clothing donations, networking for job placement, housing, health insurance. We have a safe space. That's a community center. They can stop in. They can utilize a free Wi-Fi for anything, for resumes, to look for jobs, for anything. And like I said, even if they just need a hot meal or someone to speak to for peer support, we're there to offer that as well.
Okay. So, mic, right? Okay. All right, so we're just gonna start, and again, this is a discussion, so please, if you wanna jump in, but we need to start having a community discussion in regards to women who are incarcerated and formerly incarcerated and what that looks like for them. So I wanna start off talking about health concerns within the facility, okay? So and I'm going to pass it more to Andromeda, right, for the health? Or that's me?
No, that's you.
Okay, all the way me. So one of the main things, full disclosure, I had to, something came back with my past and I had to go to Albany County Jail for 8 months. Unfortunately for Albany County Jail, I was there, right? And so I took notes. And, one of the main things is being someone who's an infectious disease counselor. I know medications, right? I know what antiretroviral medication sounds like when I hear it. So one of the first things I noticed that the security staff knew the medications that the women were taking. And they were screaming out on the tier, come get your this. That shouldn't happen. That's HIPAA, right? That's Article 27F in New York State. So that was one of the things that I even pulled a couple of nurses to the side and say, hey, why are you kind of letting this officer look at the screen? So I want to say across the board in facilities and different things, how do we separate medical from security? Now, I understand security, care, custody, and control, but the medication doesn't fall under that part. Am I right or wrong? How do we comply with confidentiality when these women are taking their meds? The officers should not be looking at their meds. They should not be looking at the screens that the nurses are working off of when they're giving them the medication. That should not be happening. So, I just think about years ago when I was in Albion, the sick call sheet, you knew the doctor who took care of HIV individuals. So the list under the name, you automatically knew these people were HIV positive, right? So if you have someone like me sitting there, I now know if someone's taking a Hep C med, a HIV med, so their confidentiality, their privacy was completely stomped all over. The next thing is sick call. I've heard reports from women at Schenectady County Jail and Rensselaer County Jail. It's hard to get to medical. It's extremely hard to get to medical. And oftentimes they use medical as a tool for punishment. You've done an infraction, you're in lock, you're not going to sick call. That's not cool. That can't be happening. So, there needs to be, again, a separation of security and medical. Yes, security runs the facility, but medical needs need to be met. Now, I'm going to use myself again, full disclosure, on one thing that happened to me. Going into Albany County Jail, I was on a hormone regimen. And so when I got there, I told the medical facility that, but they told me it was something that they couldn't do. I got sicker and sicker and sicker until eventually they had to rush me out, and eventually I had to get those treatments. So again, maybe having a conversation with the medical staff on if someone, not saying if someone comes in and say, oh, well, I want to take this hormone treatment. No, but if they came into your facility already taking these medications, it should be adhered to.
I could speak on that.
Okay.
So many women are actively transitioning before incarceration from F to M. So whether it be limited resources or lack of education on the topic, their treatment is stopped abruptly and sometime without reason. Pride Center does offer, whether if it is a lack of knowledge, and Pride Center can offer that sensitivity training or some sort of training and education so that we can bridge that gap with that communication, so maybe that can help with complying with continuing their medical treatment so that they can continue their hormone therapy. Maybe that's some way that this can help, this issue, can address this issue.
Does anyone have any feedback on that topic?
Or have any experiences with this at all?
I can answer a bunch of questions. I'm sure.
Yeah. Okay.
This is not an attack.
This is an open discussion.
I promise you it's not.
Or if anyone has a question as well. Oh yeah, no. And if anyone has any questions as well for us throughout, the discussion as well that you'd like to ask us on a certain topic, we're more than willing to, answer to the best of our ability also. That's more than welcome.
So let me just, I'll tell you a couple things.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, kind of.
First of all, regarding medication, they shouldn't be doing that, all right? There's a policy against that. That goes back to the old HIV inmates that we used to have that got their food delivered in styrofoam trays. It was very self-serving as to why that was happening, so everybody knew, hey, that person is HIV positive. That was all banned. So no medication should be called out by any officer at any time, nor should they be looking. It's really none of our business. But I will say that what you're talking about, we were the first jail in the state of New York that was PREA compliant. We've dealt with LGBTQ for years. We're all set for that. The biggest issue is it's not a matter of lack of training or lack of knowledge, it's a lack of compassion. That's what a lot of it boils down to. I mean, I'll call it what it is. And that's something that we're always trying to, to overcome when you're dealing with correctional staff. So the other part of that is that I would always encourage everybody, these forums like these are great, and first of all, thank you for the invitation. But I always encourage everybody, call me. I'm the easiest person in law enforcement to find. I will sit down with anybody, I will discuss the issues, and we'll make sure that we work them out. Sometimes we may agree to disagree, but 9 times out of 10, there's a compromise and we're gonna work it out. So I would always encourage people. A lot of folks won't, they won't call, they'll jump on social media or whatever and try to get it solved that way, which never works. Just reach out, call me, and I'll be more than happy, and you'll get me directly, and we'll sit down and figure it out.
You know what, I have a question for you before you sit down. So, is there a separation between security and medical? Do they operate under the same thing, or they're separate?
Well, it's same but different. So obviously care, custody, and control, as you mentioned, is our primary function, right? Medical falls within that. It's kind of like parallel, right? There's a little bifurcation there, and it just kind of like runs alongside of us. Medical is a very important component. We still have to keep the nurses safe, have to keep custody and control of our infirmary. We're one of very few jails in the state that has an infirmary. So it is somewhat separate. There's obviously, we'd all be naive to figure that the officer will never know what the treatment is or what the medication is, because he's going to be standing next to that nurse the entire time. But it's his responsibility not to violate any regulations and shout that out, which is just irresponsible.
Thank you. We could go to the next. Where are we? Okay. So, the next topic we have is jail structure and environmental. And the conditions that are going on in the facilities now. I don't know if listen, unfortunately, I've been in quite a few county jails, okay? Nassau County, Rikers Island, Albany County, Suffolk County, and none of them are perfect. You're not gonna find the perfect facility with waxed floors, unless you're in J Block and Albion, you have a particular officer. That's not happening anywhere else. Birds flying in the units, right? And pooping on the beds, and women waking up to birds sitting on their tables in their cells. Silverfish bugs, things that the stuff that drips from the walls to on the ceilings. I mean, TT, would you mind speaking to some of that? If you don't, this is Tierra Adams, and so I don't want to be the only one to act like, okay, maybe I'm just didn't see this happening, but I'm not the only one. So I would prefer someone else to speak to that.
Hi. But yes, everything she's saying is true. The conditions, especially Albany County in particular, disgusting. Like, it's just not sanitary. The things that they allow to go on in inmates, and it's just nasty and inhumane, honestly speaking. Like, it needs to be scrubbed. Like, you could ask for cleaning stuff and oh no, you can't get that right now. Like, this girl is just smearing her period blood all over. And y'all want us all to sit in the same room with this and just wait around for hours before y'all give us some type of cleaning supplies to clean it up, and sit at the bubble and laugh like it's a joke. Like, it's just disgusting, period.
Okay, so just a little bit more background on that. I don't know, for visual effect, if you're in your cell and you're looking up, the ceiling paint is dripping off and it's peeling, but there's this water that's literally dropping on you as you sleep, and it's brown. So what a lot of people did was put sanitary napkins to the ceiling to keep the water from dropping on you. So that's one of the things. The next thing is mobility. Again, myself, I don't know, the facility, the rec yard, you have the little rec yard that the women use. I'm not really understanding why the men have the new facility and the new yard, whatever, but I didn't even know I had a severe back problem until I came home, because I had limited mobility. I couldn't move. There was nowhere to walk. There was nowhere to go. So even if we walked around in a small yard, that wasn't enough to let me know that I had a problem. And they were never allowed to use the gym. So if it was winter time, the women didn't go to rec because they couldn't go outside, and they never were allowed to use the gym. So now I know in Rensselaer County Jail, it might even be worse, because whatever they deem in the rec is within the pod. So they have that right there, so you don't have anywhere to walk. I can't speak to Schenectady County Jail because no one's ever mentioned that to me.
I don't have a mic, but I would speak
Yeah,
to
kind of we do, because they can't hear.
Has anyone in here been into Rensselaer County to see the records? Yeah. Okay.
You want this mic,
So
T?
let me just explain it.
Our rec yards off of the female housing unit, it's actually a very large rec yard. Rensselaer County Jail, yes. We do have a rec yard. Part of our expansion a few years ago, we had 4 new housing units built. We have adjacent rec yards to the female housing unit and 3 of the other male housing units. It's very large. There's plenty of room to walk around on there. There's basketball equipment, so. You don't think that, have you been to the inside rec yard?
No, I haven't been to the new
thank God. I haven't been, and I
Okay.
don't be able to see that.
All right, I just wanted to speak to that since we were talking about it. I mean, if anyone has any questions about it or anything in regards to Rensselaer County, I can answer any of the questions, okay?
So I guess that's another, for women, I don't know if some of you understand, it's cattiness, right? Women like cattiness. So if you don't have anything to do, if you don't have anywhere to go, it's gonna be that, right? You're gonna get locked down, you're gonna get this, because you have nothing to do. They don't even have a library. I think at Rensselaer County Jail, you can use the kiosk and order stuff. Am I correct about that?
Yeah, we have computerized kiosks on all the housing units, but we also do have a general library and a law library that everyone.
Right. But in Albany County Jail, there is no more library, my understanding, and the librarian was nice enough, if you say, hey, can you try to find this book? She would try to find different authors, but there's no library. The library is completely gone. So, and then there's the kiosk. Let's talk about the kiosk. A lot of women don't know how to use that. So if I come in and I'm trying to look up stuff on my case and trying to help myself, I don't know how to use this device. No one's telling me how to use this device. We're barely going to get the device because the officers don't want to get up and bring it on the tier. So now I have an officer who doesn't want to bring me the device that I don't know how to use anyway once I get it, that 1,000 people want to get on it, but nobody really knows how to use it. And so that's a really big problem. So when you don't have access to legal help to help yourself, that's something I've never heard of before. The inability to look up and work on your own case, not have access to law books. And if it is on a kiosk, no one knows how to use it. There's no one to say, how does this work?
Hi, so my name is Lauren. I'm Dr. Alice Green's assistant. I'm the assistant director at the Center for Law and Justice. And I first want to say, before I say the bad things, Craig Apple is the bomb. He never tells us no. We can come in there and do all the programming we want. We ask for this, we ask for that. He gives it to us. Haven't personally seen you since the launch of LEAD, but hi. But that being said, which I didn't understand until this forum, we do get a lot of calls from females about birds. I think even a few about bats, about not having a lot of the things. I think lack of air was it, and it never hit me how come I don't really get those calls from guys. I didn't realize. I did know there was like an old side and a new side. I didn't realize that, I guess women, are you saying women are on the old side? Okay. I didn't realize that, but just so you know, we do get a lot of calls from women and their families about conditions in the jail. I just, not having, by the grace of God, spent any time in there, personally, I didn't realize that. But I guess my question is more, the tablets that you guys have now, how can that help alleviate this kiosk issue she's talking about?
There is no law library. When there was a law library, you would go to the law library 1 hour, maybe if you were lucky and the population was low, up to 2 hours, all right? To get rid of that and give everybody uncoveted access to your own legal work, we got the kiosks. The kiosks, I've never heard a complaint on the kiosks. Kiosks we've had for years. Then we took it a step further and gave every single inmate a tablet, not at taxpayers' expense. We worked it out with the vendor. Every single inmate in there has their own tablet. They can sit in their cell and search if they have to now. So as far as instruction, if somebody's having a problem, I guess they could use the tablet to contact ISU and ask for further instruction or something to that effect. I'm sure that some of the staff is not as, lenient as far as help goes than some of the other staff, let's be real. The birds were an issue. The women, just so everybody knows, are in a 1931 portion of the jail. It's been rehabbed in the early 90s. I worked in there in 87, 86, and 7. So I think back in the early 90s, the women portion was rehabbed. It's not so much a traditional, like Alcatraz linear style housing. It's more grouped area. I I try to stay away from the women's tiers, to be honest with you. I haven't been on there in a couple of years. That's actually a lie. I was upstairs when the immigrants were in last June. So the birds were an issue. I was told that was rectified, that some of the screening has been pushed off the bars. Don't ask me why. But so the screening should be back on. There are little gaps, so if it's like a little tiny bird, there's a chance it could get in, absolutely. You know, I'm not gonna say it's a perfect place, but I will say that, you know, you try to keep it as clean as you can. And as far as water dripping down, I mean, that's stuff that I've never ever heard before. So I'm texting them as I'm sitting here, as you're mentioning these, and I'm like, what about this, what about this? I don't work at the jail. I was at the jail yesterday for half a day on Veterans Day, just to talk to some of the female and male veterans that we have. But, you know, so like I said, these are the things that call me. You know, let's address them. I'd rather address them than let it, you know, just mushroom down the road.
Do you ever go there, sir, unannounced?
Yesterday. I go to the jail faithfully once a week, maybe once every 10 days. They never know when I'm coming, actually. I only live a mile and a half from the jail, so I'll stop in the jail sometimes at 2 in the morning and take a walk around. Sometimes I'll stop in there. Yesterday, I showed up at 10 o'clock. Everybody was panicking because they're like, what's he doing here? So, man, I hadn't shaved, so they didn't know if I was out all night or what was going on. So, you know, we spent a couple hours on the veterans tier, and I'm male and female. So, they never know when I'm coming or going. It's not that I'm trying to surprise them, but I also don't feel like I need to give somebody a warning that I'm coming into the building. Look at our population, our jail max is at 1,040. Our census this morning is the highest it's been in a year. We're almost touching 500, but that's mainly because I am Otsego County, Herkimer County, Albany County, Greene County, and Perry County right now. So once those counties build jails, which is foolish, all those inmates will be out, and our census after bail reform will probably be down in the high 200s. That will allow us to shift inmates to different parts. I'm hoping there will be coming a time where I can move the females to a certain portion of where the males used to be, and then we can go through the female portion as well. Right now, I don't have any swing space for females.
So you haven't been to the female unit in a while?
Next June.
7 West in particular?
No. 7 West is down on the bottom, right?
6 West is on the bottom. 7 West.
That's where I was, yeah. That's where the immigrants were.
And you didn't see?
Well, I don't go in the private areas. I go down the hall. I don't go in the
Right.
areas. I just don't think that's my place.
I understand. Do they still have the puppy program there?
Yes.
So let's talk about that next, if you don't mind.
Sure.
So, the puppies are on 6 West. And they're there to, I think, I don't know if they're for CNI, they're training the puppies.
No.
I'm not sure what they're for.
Just for simple adoption.
Okay, so the girls are the puppy program, they have their own little space. Generally, the girls who do the puppy program are the same girls who are the trustees, so to speak, on that floor. When the girls come out to do the food, and the women put their trays under the window, the glass, the puppies run around and lick the trays. So, that puppy program and the disrespect that they allow those dogs to lick off those trays is so bad. Like,
Those women should be locking those dogs up. The dogs shouldn't be running.
they run through. That one time the dog scared the heck out of me. I was coming down to medical, and I'm afraid of certain dogs, and I almost passed out because I came through and the dog was running, and I got in trouble because I got scared, and I questioned why the dog was loose. So those dogs lick off the trays in there. That's a fact, sir.
I'm not going to dispute it with you, but I also think that there's got to be some accountability on the tier runners. These people are, they're inmates as well. But the officer should be telling them to secure the dog at that point. Some of the dogs on the tiers will go, during the day, they'll run around with them in between training sessions, whatever. Yesterday I was with the dogs over on the veterans pod. They've got 2 little puppies over there. I'm a fan of the puppy program completely.
Right.
Now that, I think, is taking it to another level. So that should not be also got to be some accountability on the two running. I mean, if she's serving food with her dog sitting there licking it, I mean.
Well, I mean, I don't know how to even address that. Who? She's here? Taisha? Book? Oh, okay.
Mr. Mayor.
How you doing? My name is Michelle.
You have a mic?
Want me to come up there?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, I'm late.
It's okay.
My name is Miss Sims. Good evening. How y'all doing? Is it any question specifically that you would like?
We were talking, at this point, we were talking about the puppy programs and the dogs running around on 6 West licking up the trays.
Kind of sanitary.
That's gross. That's gross.
But we're on the topic of environmental and structural and the safetiness and the cleanliness and that part of facilities. Unfortunately, right now, we were supposed to have women from other facilities who've been in other facilities, but they couldn't get here. So,
What are some things like, what are some environmental things that, that you've noticed or just, yeah, like any unsanitary conditions that come to mind that you would want addressed? Or,
In Albany County Jail.
or any
Or any county jail.
rinses and that.
Well, I only been in Albany County Jail, and what I could speak for, the shower area is gross. Pretty much catching fungus on the bottom of your foot. The mattresses is done. I mean, like, the living quarters period in Albany County Jail is not somewhere that humans should be housed. And we could work together collectively with these people and break it down piece by piece. Like, I can't sit here and think off the top of my head, but I'm quite sure it's more concerns.
Right.
You know?
So another thing I wanted to talk about, and this is just overall, we understand that most of these facilities and programs, they were male modeled, right? And so it feels like a lot of times they take a male facility or program and put a dress on it. And now I'm saying this is a female program. I know in Rensselaer County Jail, when the women come in, they have the opportunity to get panties and bras. Most of the women, a lot of the women who come in off the street in all the counties, some of them are sex workers and they're addicts. So they don't have, I mean, some might not even have panties and bras on when they come in. A lot of the women come in and they're on that time of the month, right? So I don't have any panties and bras. I'm on that time of the month. The officer may or may not give me one pad if he feels happy. So now, as a tier worker, which I was, now I have to go, because the officer won't give me gloves half the time, and take a plastic bag and scoop this woman's soiled uniform. And basically, I was working really good with Officer Matt to get more uniforms, because you could see where they had the shelves labeled sizes to have more uniforms up there, but they didn't have them. And 7 West at that time was a reception tier. Most of the women coming in all 3 jails, are kicking heroin, right? So I'm throwing up all over the place. I'm on my cycle. I don't have panties and bras, and maybe the officer will let me get a sanitary napkin, and maybe I'll get out and get a shower. But until I move to the next floor and I'm kind of out of that 3-day window, when I'm kind of coming back to myself, I'm soiled completely. It is the most degrading thing I have ever seen in my entire life, ever. And I don't understand why the women aren't given, especially if they don't come in with them panties and bras and maybe a pair of socks. I don't think that's too much to ask.
Pads as well.
They get, if the officer wants to give them a sanitary.
When you come in, like they give
Yeah.
you toothpaste and toilet paper. If you're a woman, you should have some pads given to you on entrance. You're gonna be there at least a month. Well, that's not true, I guess.
So Sheriff Apple, I think it was to speak on your comment originally about not just checking off the box and doing what's necessary, but also just what you said before about compassion. And also to speak on what you said about just forms of punishment, right? Like if this is, I think it's kind of connecting on what both of you said, right? It's a form of punishment and also the lack of compassion. It's where those two meet when this person comes in, and if it's the combination of the two, or this person feels that kind of power trip and they're able to have that authoritative state over this person, over this woman, and they feel that need and they feel that authoritative state where they have control over this woman. Mind you, she's in no control of herself at this point, and it's very harsh. She's already in this harsh situation where she's coming out of something and not in control of herself in an absolutely vulnerable situation. I mean, what is she to do?
So wait, I can't change the past.
Yeah.
I don't even need that thing. I can't change the past, but what we can do is tell you what's going on in the future, all right?
Okay.
So with the census changing, it's allowed me to take some CO positions, correction officer positions, and we've changed them to what some people, I have a different title. To me, you've got an inmate service worker / a special projects coordinator. It's a civil service thing that we had to abide by. Some people out in the community know it as a community care coordinator, all right? I have 4 of them now, in addition to the 7 inmate service workers. They are working with the few inmates that hopefully we'll have left, which should be 300 or less, to coordinate exactly what are your needs, what do you need, why are you here, why do you keep coming back here? Let's work on that problem. Is it identification, transportation, domestic violence, addiction, whatever the case may be. And those are the problems we're focusing on. They're giving more individual care. So that's where this will come into play. You know, again, listen, some of my staff may not be perfect, so they may be on a power trip. You know what, you get nothing today. I had a bad night last night, Cowboys lost, whatever the case may be. And it gets carried over into the workplace. Not uncommon with any job. Is it right? No, it's not right. But that, again, that's where somebody needs to, come forward, use the tablets for what they're supposed to be. Let us know. We'll come in and investigate. The last thing they want me to do is turn the professional standards loose, right? So I usually, I've got a whole list I've been texting as a result of the conversation that's been going on here. And that's really all it takes more times than nothing. It's just a conversation.
Yeah.
Let us know what's going on. And I don't want anybody living in that. I don't want anybody living in a squad. I don't want anybody sleeping on a bunk having plates dripping on. Right? I don't want a dog licking my track. So, it's a great conversation, but I can tell you that things have changed already. I don't know when your stay was, but things have changed already, and they're going to continue to change because now it's almost like they're giving him individual care. I don't want you coming back. You know what I mean?
You don't gotta ever work.
Sadly, and you've got to know this, sadly,
Yeah.
some people at this time of year want to come back.
Right.
Yeah.
They're homeless. They don't
Right.
have a place to stay.
Right.
So they want to come back to jail and get 3 hots in a cot and just suffer through the next 6 or 7 months and then freeze to death on the streets. That's why we did what we did with the homeless shelter, to prevent that and to try to take care of humans. So there's a lot of changes going on.
On
Think
a,
about medication assistance?
Medically assisted treatment?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you guys do that now? Like,
Yeah,
for those kicking
we
heroin,
set the bar. In
opioids?
fact, yesterday, I got a call from the Department of Justice. They're using Albany County as a model for the nation, not just the state, but the nation, for medically assisted treatment. I just left Georgetown University last week speaking about it. We were the second jail in the state the first jail outside of Rikers to adopt medically assisted treatment. I won't take kudos for it. I'll give kudos to Keith Brown because he wore me down on it. But needless to say, we did it. We took the chance and we did it. And we put 200, these are 2-week-old numbers, we put like 242, 243 through the program. I currently, again, as of 2 weeks ago, had roughly 40 people in the jail on the program. What do you think the recidivism rate is for that? Now, you're talking about those fighting addiction, where the recidivism rate on that is up to 70%, no lower than 45. The recidivism rate in the county jail on medically assisted treatment since last January is 3%.
How many of those were women?
Well, I can tell you, I have to break that down even more, but as I stand here right now, I only have 3 women in the SHARP program, where I had 20 to 30 at its inception. So it's working, and they're not coming back.
So there must be a process for them to continue their medication.
Well, what we do is once they go through an assessment 5 days prior to release, once they go through that assessment, we then square them up. We try to get them to go into outpatient treatment somewhere. If they refuse to, we work with them a little bit. Our critical care coordinators / project coordinators will make contact with them. Hey, how are you doing? You know, how are you holding up, whatever the case may be. We have a very high success rate. If I have you for 6 months or more, we got a great success rate. 30 days, I'm not a miracle worker. It's not going to happen. But hopefully, when you get out, we can move you into outpatient treatment, and you'll continue a course in recovery. So we try to guide them and then check up on them. And if they're doing well in there and they're nearing success and they're nearing the ending of the completion of their recovery, or not, they're never going to be out of that, the completion of their treatment, we then at that point try to give them a job.
Can I ask you a quick question? Do you work with the sheriffs of Rensselaer and Schenectady, so you guys are kind of like in a synergy type of thing with some of this? Like, this sounds great in Albany, but are they doing that in Rensselaer County and Schenectady County? I mean, I don't know harm meant, but that's really some of the reason why we're having this, to see how we can get the 3 counties to like have better synergy. Like, if something is working really good here in Albany, why not do it in Troy and Rensselaer? You know what I mean?
So there's a couple answers to that, all right? The immediate answer is yes, we all work together. There's 57 of us, 3 of us are appointed by county executives, the 54 remaining are elected, which I am. So this is what you run into a lot of times, though, and it's, I don't mean this in disrespect to my counterparts, but a lot of folks never worked in a jail, never saw a jail, retired as a police officer, said, wow, that sheriff's job looks great, and they run for it, and they're popular enough, and they win. So what you get is a lot of folks that'll get into these positions not knowing that the jail is probably the biggest headache of the job. 30-some years ago, I happened to work in the jail. So I know the jail, I know what it's like for the inmates, I know what it's like for the staff, because I spent 16 hours a day for 2 years locked up in there as well. So I felt like I was, when I got out, I felt like I was on probation. So it's different when you come from within. It's a total different world when you're on the outside and then you're trying to learn and seek out the information from the correctional facility. So to say we're working with synergy, it would be an accurate statement. To say we're all doing the same programs, it's not an accurate statement. What works in Albany County may not work in Rensselaer County. Rensselaer County is also a smaller jail. They're 1/3 the size of my jail. Rensselaer County, or Schenectady County, is I think about 20 to 25% of our jail. So for them to have, quote, a successful MAP program would take a couple $100,000 to get up and running, and a lot of effort out there. I have great partners in Conifer Park, Whitney Young. I have our vendor inside the jail. I've got Catholic Charities. I've got Catal Institute. So I have some great partners that, we all kind of shared and brainstormed and came up with a successful program. They may not have access to those resources. So that's why I tell a lot of my counterparts, let's not reinvent the wheel, send them to Albany. So you can utilize our Soldier On, you can utilize our SHARP program, you can utilize the parent class, you can utilize whatever the case may be. We don't need to do this in smaller jails because it's kind of hard to justify. And they only have a couple.
So at this point, we need to move into LGBT resources. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Anyone have any questions, topics?
Yeah.
Okay, right here and then boom.
I just wanted to comment on Rensselaer County Jail. We actually do have a MAP program that we're working on unveiling hopefully at the beginning of the year. We are actually working with Conifer Park, and hopefully we can encompass all of
it called? The
Matt.
MAP program? Okay, awesome.
And before we move forward, I just want to acknowledge Pat from Merck Pharmaceutical is here, and thank you so much, Pat, for everything and being a partner with us and on this. Book.
Okay, excuse me, sir. With all the great things that y'all have for Albany County, for the people, services, and things, how are we gonna address the abuse issues that go on inside of it? Because that's a healthy part of telling so. Because we go through abuse out here, and we go through abuse in there. So how could we, as a community, because I too was an asshole in this, so I got beat by a correctional officer, but I did something I ain't had no business doing, right? But it's people coming from New York City being abused, right? And we can do all these great things, but at some point, the healing has to start coming up inside out. So I don't know if this is new, or whatever we can do as a community to help that piece with all the greatness that y'all have going on, with all the services, because all of that is part of healing. We all need some services there. I think that's great.
That's fair. As I was, before we got started, I was indicating that I am not a fan of men watching women, women watching men. I don't agree with it. I think it should be totally banned from the Commission of Corrections. Unfortunately, there's a lawsuit and a case out there that indicates that we have to give that ability for men COs to bid a female housing unit and vice versa. I don't agree with that, but needless to say, that is now case law. So that's the start right there, is to get the commission and to get that case reversed. Because that's huge. I mean, I have a correction officer that's going on trial for rape within the next, I think, 2 weeks.
So, excuse me, sir. So I'm hearing a little bit about what she's saying, and I guess I want to, and maybe you and I can have a different conversation at another time. It's also your female officers that are the worst offenders of violence against the women on those floors. The male officers really don't. I've watched the male officers step back because the female officers was like I have no words for what I've watched the female officers do to females who were clearly had mental health issues. Like, there's no way you can't look at this woman and not understand that she doesn't understand, but you still want to beat her and then pepper spray her and make everybody else sick. These are not the men on your floor doing that.
I gotta be honest with you, I'm a bit taken back by that statement, because as I sit here, I cannot for the life of me remember one complaint ever coming in against the female officer.
Wow.
Not one.
I bet you the four of us in this room will say the same 2 or 3 names.
But you gotta, you know what I mean, you gotta call down the professional standards, you gotta file that complaint. I mean, without doing that, this could continue on. I'm not agreeing or disagreeing. What I'm saying is that somebody has got to alert us to this. Because I'm telling you, I can't ever remember a female guard having a complaint levied against them. Not one.
Wow. Are you
That's what I'm saying.
seriously?
I mean, you know of a couple incidents. I don't, because no one's ever come down to internal affairs. And
Sir,
that individual works right.
I was in your facility for 8 months. I've seen more than a couple of incidents.
I know, I'm not disagreeing.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is nobody's complaining though. They're either taking it and just tight-lipping it and moving on. No one's calling down. No one's alerting anybody to that.
Or is it not getting to you? Or I've seen paperwork, so I'm wondering if it's not getting to you.
I think one of the things is to report it and still have this person still watching over you. So if I say, hey, this person is abusing me, and I have to still live with this person every day, living with the torment, I think that's the biggest.
The other part that I don't know when the last time you folks had ever been in there. I don't know if you even know today, but I ordered body cameras on every officer in that jail. So, for the last 5-6 months, I believe, every single officer has been on. So, again, I can't correct the past. I can't change it, but going forward, this is the new normal. So, I can tell you that assaults both ways, staff on officer, officer on staff, everything has almost diminished. I don't have an issue with body cameras whatsoever. I mean, I'm not the most popular man up there with the body cameras, but I think it's a good thing, and I think it's going to invoke change naturally. So, you know, it's important that you know about that.
You guys are going national, you have to really clean it up. You guys are about to go national. And I'm from Albany. So, you know, like that represents me too. So, therefore, I've been abused in the jail. I've been a part of the property, right? And the thing all over is nobody want to take accountability from the inside. So, you know, with new organizations and doing the new thing, that we should really start being honest and serving people how you want to be served. Because I don't believe when you guys went to training or when they go to training that it's to be abusive to people. We wouldn't want to do that to you. We wouldn't want it done to your kids. So it's just like we want to heal now. So, you know, Albany going national, I hope y'all do some great things because like you don't want to sit back and leave this and do their own thing. So Albany is going to be the uprising. Just let's do a good job of what we putting our energy into.
I have a question. Are there mandated mental health assessments being implemented for COs or for anyone that's like handling any? Like are there like
Absolutely.
yeah?
But what about periodically, like
How often?
checking in?
Not without some sort of probable cause or something to that effect.
So I think that might be an issue as well. I mean, only because their job isn't the easiest, and so with all the pressure and all of this,
Right.
who's to?
Well, that's a
I
good
mean,
idea, but you also got to remember that all of these correction officers are also governed by a bargaining agreement, you know, a bargaining agreement, collective bargaining agreement, contract.
Unions, right.
So that's not something that's easily done. Can we suggest it?
So a union would be against them being mental wellness?
Well, I would say against mental wellness.
Would they rather that or
work
the
with us. If
complaints?
somebody's struggling, we have peer counselors, we could call over to Rensselaer County and ask them to have somebody come over to speak to our officers, because they may not want to work, or, you know, on leash on the fella that they're working next to every day.
Right.
So we may have Rensselaer County send a peer counselor over, or Schenectady, or whomever. But, no, that's not something that you can just push on them.
So what about maybe like an in-service where it's,
In mental health training in service is done annually.
okay, that's I think what she was asking, is something that's done
Yeah.
continuously throughout their career?
but
or
even
it's just
annually,
they
I
get
feel like
tired?
it's just, you know, for all that stuff that's being pent up throughout the year. Can you imagine just that year? I just feel like once again, it's just a check off box, whereas it should be happening every 6 months. Just imagine all those things that happen throughout the year. Just for them, at that point, it's that lack of compassion. A year is nothing. At that point, it's like whatever. It becomes so numb, right? So, but yeah,
Cultural competency trainings?
yeah,
I have to check, to be honest.
yeah. I'm so sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry, Thomas.
Cool. My question has to deal with accountability. You acknowledge that sometimes there are officers you come across who have exercised a lack of compassion. They might bring their problems in from home because, well, the Cowboys lost, they're angry. When you come across these instances, how do you address those situations? Because, I mean, I'm a formerly incarcerated individual. I've never been to Albany County Jail, and we're speaking to women's issues right now, but I know that sometimes when I filed complaints, I see the same officer on a tier, 10, 20 minutes later, the next day. How do you handle those situations once they come before you? Because it's just as easy for the women who are on the tier who are being treated this way to think that you honestly don't care if the same officer is taking care of them every single day.
Yeah, so it takes a little bit to move an officer off a bit assignment. Right? attention to the females here whenever complaints like that will surface because of exactly, we put 2 correction officers in prison for raping female inmates. So we're very cautious there. But listen, anybody that knows me knows that I'm a compassionate individual, and I like taking care of people. And I think that's what we're supposed to do. Whether you're an inmate, whatever the case may be, it doesn't matter. And I use that line on everybody. You know, I mean, how would you want to be treated if your son or your daughter was in jail, or if your son or daughter was in a third world country and got swept up in an immigration raid? Wouldn't you want somebody to look out for you? So that's how I am. Let me tell you something. Since 2011, we've changed this department. My God, I think we've done 180s and 360s, till the cows come home, because it's not easy to go change in a correctional environment or a law enforcement environment. You're always met with resistance. But I got to be honest with you, the majority of that staff up there has acknowledged the change and accepted it. Whether it's we have a lot of programs up there that we try to help people with, and our staff is buying into them. Our staff's working with them. We got inmates calling staff at home now because they blew a bomb in the jail. So, listen, are there some in there that have no compassion or want to be a hard ass or whatever the case may be? I'm sure, all right? But I also think the majority of them are caring individuals because, you know what? They're starting to see another side of it. We were always bred, and I'm not going to speak for Chief Gerasi, but, I've got a few more years on than him. He's got a number on himself. We were always bred to just get numbers, lock them up, move on. Who cares if they got kids at home, whatever. Get the numbers, put them in jail, boom. That's why Albany County has in jail 1,040 with a population of 3,020. All right? It's disproportionate. So we have since 2011, when I became sheriff, tried to change the face of that and drive that down. And I think the proof is in the numbers. Today we sit here with a population of just touching 500. With me being all those other 4 counties and having 50 federal borders in there as well. So 130 of them are not mine. So out of that 130, take the 500, and 52 of them are parole violators. There's 180. You knock those numbers down, we're into pre-crack cocaine era. So do I accept that? Absolutely not. That would piss me right off. I push for professionalism every day, whether it's a correction officer, an EMT, a dispatcher, or if it's one of our deputies. I don't want to see that. I don't want to come to meetings like this and have me told that my staff shit on somebody or treated them rudely or whatever the case may be. Because I hear that sometimes when people go in to visit an inmate. And I always have to remind people that, just because they're going to visit a jail doesn't mean that they're an inmate or that they're a criminal or whatever. Maybe it's their son, maybe it's their daughter fighting addiction, maybe it's their second DWI. Maybe they had a bad night and needed to fuel their habit and went and stole someone's pocketbook and got a felony. Who knows what the circumstances are? But again, treat people how you want to be treated.
Can I just make one suggestion? And it's not even, I'm just going to throw it out there. Sometimes it's in words, right? Simple words. Inmate.
I was going to bring that up.
Yeah, I get that.
Inmate. That word
Dehumanizes.
cuts to the core of me because correctional officers, and then one that's coming into mind is not even from your facility, never called a female by their name. It was always inmate get this, inmate get that, inmate. And it becomes, so maybe sometimes saying the incarcerated individual, maybe just in that simple word, it makes it more of a human person. That inmate word is dehumanizing. And so just every time you said it, it's not something.
I get called out on it all the time. I'm just an old school guy, and that's how. I still have some officers up there that'll yell, "Inmate Apple," "Inmate whatever." They still do it. That's how we were trained to do it. So yeah, I agree. That's a fair statement.
Right. Okay. So I want to just. Oh, one more. I'm sorry.
So my comment was going to be similar to Ronnie's, but then I had a question about language. Like in your written policies and procedure, do they still use dehumanizing language like inmate? Because they're actually people. And when you call them inmates, it makes it easier to not see them as people. Dr. Green is very big. Like, we're not allowed to even say that word. They're individuals who are detained. So I think even more so, not just the language that's coming out of somebody's mouth, like you said, old people you know, people have done this for years, that's what it's always been called, it's easy to slip off the tongue, but in the language that are in the policies and procedures. And that may be a small fix in bringing some humanization into the culture of the jail, but I don't know how practical it is, you know, you guys are the experts.
We do a review, biannual, and then changes are suggested, some are adopted.
Right.
So that's a good point.
And you are that person to make those changes, right? You're that person. Okay, then. So we're gonna move on.
Wait, I had a question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Just on this abuse piece. So working at the center, I have literally, and I have to be careful to not expose anything, but I have taken calls from some of your correctional officers who are reporting abuse to us, but won't report it to you guys. And they literally, I've had people refuse to give us their names, they want to remain anonymous. I had one person come down and see our lawyer, and we had to clear out the whole office. She was that fearful to come talk to the lawyer about her options, knowing what she knew about whatever was going on. And I've been there since 2015. This isn't like once a year, you know, it's at least every couple months, you know, it's not unheard of at the center. We do track these calls. We don't use names for confidentiality. So my question is there an anonymous way your officers can report abuse of, you know, those who are detained?
That's right in our policies and the procedures. Absolutely.
Good, because it's more for me, so when they call, I can say, why aren't you doing this?
We do get calls periodically. It's not that often, not as often as you're speaking about, but we do get them. And again, you know, I'll remind you that it seems to be an anomaly that since we've added body cameras,
I'm so happy about that.
Professional standards unit is almost having to look for things to do.
Got you. But that was mostly for me, so I can tell people when they call, why aren't you using this?
And I would encourage you, you know, I mean, I tell everybody that, listen, we don't know, there's nothing I can do, right? And a lot of things we talk about here, some of them have already been fixed, new to me, and I'm like, no, that's interesting. And, you know, I've already addressed it, I've already sent it off, and I know what's going on, but,
I'll go back. So basically, you do have a whistleblower. A whistleblower. I just want to throw that in there. I want to throw that in there.
So we have one in the department, and the county has one in totality as well. So there's two options that they can pursue if they don't trust us and they want to deal with just the county.
Okay. Can you just introduce yourself, sir, please? Because
Sure. So my name is Anthony Drossi. I'm the chief of police for the city of Waterville. I had the opportunity to meet you just by chance.
almost ran into his car in my scooter.
She did almost run off my car.
It's okay though.
And then she asked me who I was, and I flipped my car to her, and I got invited. So this is great. So thank you for the invite. I began my career with the New York City Police Department. I was there for a few years. I did a majority of my career here at the City of Albany Police Department. I retired in July, and then 3 months ago I took over this position. So one thing I always challenge the community and my officers is to move from certainty to curiosity. So in this realm, instead of being certain of those who have been incarcerated, move to curiosity. Get to know that person. Treat them like a human. So that's why I'm here. A lot of work that I'm supportive of is surrounding what's called principal policing. It deals with procedural justice. I'll come back to that in a minute. Reconciliation and implicit bias. So in my community, the school community, the community at large, and with the officers, that's kind of what I subscribe to. It's every approach, every day is principal policing. And it is, invoking change is difficult in law enforcement, but it starts from the top down, right? So that's how I embody my own principles, guide me throughout, my daily approach, and it's how I treat my officers, but it's what I expect, more importantly, is how they treat the community. And we've had a lot of success. I've met no resistance because people want to be treated with respect, and they get that. And we've had opportunities to reconcile with the minority community, disenfranchised community, and so I truly believe in this work, and that's why as soon as I got the invite, I obliged, and then I came here. So, and it's great. To this point, I have nothing to offer as far as the correctional facilities, but I think there's some value in me being here, and I can definitely, offer some opinions. I can speak specifically what I've done and what I believe. I can't speak for other law enforcement agencies in the surrounding districts, but
What's your complaint reporting process?
Thank you. But moving forward, our next conversation will be around arrest. And what does that look like? Because that is part of this conversation, but we don't have 2 hours today. I'll give you.
Yeah. All right. So our next topic is LGBT resources. So many women explore their sexuality while incarcerated and are involved in same-sex relationships while incarcerated. Upon release, they face discrimination from family and friends and are forced back into the closet because they don't have the proper resources or peer support to count on. So Pride Center can serve as a hub of support for these women. We have over 150 resources from health, mental health, legal aid, case management for these women to utilize once they come to us. We can help them navigate these services, and we can assist them with exploring the option of also continuing education. It's important that we know that there's not only a community waiting for them to support them, but there's also possibility for them, and they're not just viewed as discarded members of society. Pride Center is a non-judgmental, safe space where they can thrive, gain confidence, and re-enter society safely and prepared.
Any comments around
LGBT services?
And just keeping in mind that I'm sure Apple, you're aware that a lot of women come into the facilities and they never engaged in same-sex relationships before, but they leave out differently. And so one of the big reasons why I wanted to partner with the Pride Center is so we can start having a conversation with those women on how that looks when they come home. What does that look like? And I need to say that sometimes that plays a part in recidivism. A lot of women try to come back to jail to be with their partners. I can't be who I am in the street, so I might as well go back to where I'm comfortable and being who I am. So I'm very happy to have the Pride Center partner with us on this conversation, very important conversation with women and what that looks like in these communities.
So I will throw this in there real quick and move on. As I said, we were the first ones in the state to get PREA compliant, and I did that with the help of In Our Own Voices. We brought them in, we worked with them. We said, listen, what do we need to do? And then I hired 2 individuals from the LGBTQ that have gone through transition. And we learned a whole bunch more. And I'm like, what do we need to do? And we work with them all the time. Like, hey, I don't know what to do here, you gotta help me. And she would be like, okay, you need to make sure you have this, that, the other thing. So listen, it's an adapting, ever-changing world.
Absolutely.
And I'm open to it, I learn new things every day. And I'm like, okay, well, you know what, I didn't know that. It's just like the first time somebody said, geez, can you stop calling it index? I'm like, yeah, you got it, right, fair enough. So we're open to it. I understand what goes on in jail. I've been up there for 33 years. So, and again, if we're doing something wrong, let us know.
So again, and that's good. And I think I heard something that you said but didn't say, because while we work with a population of trans women, don't forget about the population of trans men. And oftentimes, lesbians, bisexuals, trans men get lost in the shuffle because there's a big conversation about trans women, and it's overpowering. And so a lot of other communities within that LGBT window get lost in the shuffle.
I've got 1 and 1. So I know
Awesome. Good stuff. Okay, so anybody else want to chime in on those topics or anything else? So I'm gonna the Me Too movement. Okay. Talk a little bit about the Me Too movement and how that kind of skipped right over the women who are incarcerated, right? No one really talked that much about that population. And so we had a little bit of a conversation before this started with the sheriff, but this is not just unique to Albany County Jail. This is a problem throughout the Justice Department from arrest to, I don't know if you guys remember, a few years, my parole officer here in Albany was arrested for rape. So, that was a few years back. Mr. Toriani, I don't know if you remember that. You remember that, huh? Yeah, I do. He was my PO, and the son of a gun came to my house late at night when he thought I was working. My ex-wife was there. I will never forget that. So, this Me Too movement missed us, and it's like we don't exist in that Me Too movement when we most certainly do. So what are you gonna do to protect women and young women? Young women are coming into the facilities, right? And they're young, and I hate to use a term that we used to use coming up, they're young and they're dumb, right? And for books say, for a little bubblegum scandal, right? Because I can be manipulated, I'm now being preyed upon by an authority figure. I want some chicken, I want a sandwich, I want a cigarette, right? So the Me Too movement really missed the mark when it didn't incarcerated and formerly incarcerated women weren't inclusive in that conversation. So is there anyone who wants to talk about that part of it, where we're at with this conversation?
So I think that goes back to humanization. It missed you because you're not seen as people. That's the bottom line. So that comes back to language, comes back to cultures, it comes back to seeing those who are incarcerated as humans.
I also think that, and I agree, I agree with everything that you said, but I think that when people, particularly women, are incarcerated, it's also, unfortunately, a unique opportunity for education. So one of the things that I do in Albany County Jail, Sheriff Apple has allowed us to come in and do an amazing program. It's a trauma-informed program, and we do psychoeducation and art therapy and a bunch of different things, but we put a lot of focus on self-awareness and education around sexual violence and domestic violence, accountability. I mean, there's a lot of different topics, but I have a lot of women that will come and talk to me and say things like, I've been raped and I didn't even realize it. Or I've been in a domestic violence relationship for years and I didn't even realize it. So I think that, unfortunately, we know that, especially with women who are incarcerated, there's often so many other factors that go into that. It's not just going out and committing a crime, getting arrested, and becoming incarcerated. We know that there's often so many other extenuating circumstances, and so it's difficult for people, I think, to reach out for resources or to even sometimes be aware of circumstances. So I think that programming during incarceration is so vital because it's a unique opportunity. You have people that this may be their safe spot. This may be the only opportunity that they have to get this kind of education because they can't do so on the outside for fear of their abuser finding out or something like that. So, I mean, we are doing that at Albany County Jail, and we've had great success with it. I also handle the PREA complaints that come in third party to Albany County, and we have a great relationship with the facility, and we're able to go in and advocate and sit with people, and so I think that things are definitely moving in the right direction. I think there's, I can only speak for what I know and what I do, certainly. But I felt that it was important to say that I think that programming is a key in that because it's really an opportunity to educate people.
Before I get you both,
verbalize that well.
One of the things we did, Sheriff, what I did, and then Shatisha back there, was under Major Elwell in Schenectady County Jail, we brought in I wrote with the assistance of other incarcerated women a 5-session intervention, and this was for incarcerated women by incarcerated women. This wasn't something someone said at a book and thought of. This was us coming together, writing a program for us. During that time, and I did it for a year, a little bit more at Schenectady County Jail, the adherence to that program was, let's say we captured 20 women and we might have lost 2 because they went on a draft upstate, or maybe 1 or 2 went home. But that's the only reason we lost women, because they understood and they can tell that this was something that maybe Titi gave an input or Boogie gave an input. And you know, unfortunately right now, as we speak here, we don't have our Hispanic or our white sisters with us, but they all gave an input, right? So it came from all cultural backgrounds to give an input on what a program women need would look like. And I think sometimes when we speak about programming, everyone has really good intentions and really good programs, but where are the voices to the women that you're giving these programs for? So are they being heard? Are they being, or is there something that, like they had a program called the Sister Program years ago. Very good program. Dr. Wyatt was amazing. I adore her, but she missed the mark because she didn't study her population. So that program actually failed because the population for that it was for, it couldn't really reach because it came from academia, but no one else on the other side of the fence. Got to have both come together and have a good marriage.
So just to comment quickly, because I think that, like what you're saying is like music to my ears, because I often work with service providers who like have read something in a book and they think that, and I often have people look at me and they're like, what do you know? You know what I mean? Because it's easy to kind of judge people. But, so one of the things that I do, you know, I went in there, I think like anybody else, with great intentions, and, you know, after, I think it was like the 3rd week, we were getting a really good flow going, and then I realized, like, this is nothing about me, like, this has nothing to do with me. And ever since then, we do, the last 15 minutes of every group, we do what we call a takedown. And we really do like a kind of like a brutal takedown of the group and what people really got out of it and what was important to them. And what we're doing is we're creating a resource guide that's actually things that will be important to them that they can pass on to other people in the community. Not something somebody just gave to them that they think might be important. And there's resources that I wouldn't even have thought of. But in the takedowns that we do, the other thing that we do is we come up with future topics. Because initially I went in with this whole list of topics that I wanted to do, things that I thought were important. But then every week as we got into these discussions, I learned that what's important to me is not important to other people always. And so I don't plan any, I mean I plan, but not until we do our takedown, and then I plan for the next group. Because I learned that you can't help somebody unless you truly know that person. And so one of the great successes I think that has come out of our program, which is successful to me, in my opinion, but is that as women are being released, they're continuing case management with me on the reentry. So I'm able to do like social services paperwork with them prior to release, and then the day that they get released or the day after, I can meet them at social services and advocate for them, or at rehab, or some of those things. So it's, I think what you said hits the nail right on the head. It's 100% about building those relationships and getting to know what people really need, not just walking in the door and saying, here's a list of resources that I think would be great for you. When in reality, half of them are closed, half of them might not work with people who have been incarcerated.
So I worked in Albany County Jail. I didn't even share this with you, but I worked through Father Young's program. I can't remember what the name, I was trying with Michael Westbrook and a few others, and I brought in the HIV/AIDS component. And then I had a good relationship with Thurman Rockwell when I started Sisters Healing Old Wounds, and he would allow me to come do one-on-ones with some women. I would pull them down and try to present our case along with Sister Phyllis and other people for present to the judges to try to help them, you know, come home and what that looks like, case management, right? I haven't revisited that because I wanted it to be enough time for my personal self to be away from your facility. But Albany County Jail is on my mind because I do have a rich program that I think the women could benefit from because it is by us, for us. So, and that is so important. It is, and it's also, and I appreciate what you said, but it's a structured thing. It's by us, for us, but each session is the same the next time the next group comes through and the next group comes through. We don't just say, okay, well next week we're gonna, each session, each 5 sessions remains the same. And it shows some stability to that. So, we'll get it back and then, but thank you, that sounds great.
Okay, well, I just wanted to say, you and this young lady pretty much said what I wanted to say. And Craig Apple, I just want to say adding more programs to Albany County Jail would be a great thing because that's what prison or a correctional facility should be based on. It shouldn't just be based on, I'm just doing time on this bed. And you know, she said something so wise that it takes to go to prison or to rehab to learn things that you would have not learned if you didn't go to prison or you didn't go to rehab or you didn't go to some type of program. And it's just on so many different levels that people can be empowered by programs. You know, as far as females being empowered because they are manipulative, they be on the gate, and that's part of violence too, the whole little rape scheme of things. So I think if we get a little bit more honest and groups and programs in there to give a woman the sense of you don't have to do that because your family probably didn't send you no money. Right. So she's doing something strange that Ronnie talked about, right? So programs would definitely be a plus versus them just sitting in themselves. So that's what I would like to see.
So I wanted to add something to that. Yes, so with Albany County now being a correctional with the 2 years, when someone is sentenced to 2 years and you know that they are going to be staying at Albany County Jail for their stay, why aren't like GEDs offered? You have tablets. These are things that you can do digitally, especially if they have 2 years. So within the 2 years, they're being released with some type of starter education if they wanted to continue once getting out. They have that starter. So that's just a suggestion that I wanted to put out there.
We're still 1 year.
Oh, I thought you turned to 2.
1 year, and the tablets have not only the GED program, and we have a school there for GED, we now have college programs on there that you can take free of charge. Nice. So, again, a lot of things have changed. Not that I want any of these to come back.
Oh, I'm not coming back.
But a lot of things have changed since, you know.
She got a degree.
So you, the Questar doesn't come in?
No.
So the last point, were you finished on it?
Yes, I was.
The last thing I want, and I think Andromeda touched on it a little bit, but honing up, and I think it really needs synergy around this, the inmate service unit. That inmate service unit looks different from Albany County Jail to Rensselaer County Jail to Schenectady County Jail. And I don't know if Schenectady County Jail still lets women out at midnight. I don't know if that's still happening. To let a female out at midnight and 1 block over is Albany Street, right? Where is the sense in that, right? So I'm an addict. I only been in a month or two, and you let me out at midnight. Now, I did it for a long time. I would stand outside Schenectady County Jail with a couple of cup coffees and some cigarettes and try my best to convince women to just, let me take you to the Schuyler Inn overnight and then I'll get you somewhere in the morning. But you can't do that all the time, and you miss people through the cracks. Then you have women coming home from Albany County Jail. Now, I'm gonna give you the benefit of the doubt, 'cause I don't know, you probably come and knock everything I'm about to say down, right? But that walk, or that to get from that jail to the nearest bus is crazy. And if I don't have somebody picking me up, what does this all look like? Like, inmate service unit I don't feel like they're actually doing what they're set up to. I think Kathleen Grady at Rensselaer County Jail does the best out of all the inmate service units. I think sometimes civilians forget that they have civilian jobs and they think they're security.
So I'm going to crush you on this one.
You're going to crush, I hope you can. Please do. I'll be happy if you do.
So the midnight releases are just about a thing of the past for everybody, unless there's an exigent circumstance. You know, this guy or this girl's from Long Island, you're up here waiting, we may bend and give a 1201, but you know, there's got to be a ride in place.
That's you. Is that also Schenectady?
I believe that's common for everybody,
okay,
because of the risk that it's just not safe, right? Especially, and I don't know about Schenectady, but in Albany County, because of that walk out there. Now, the walk had nothing to do with us. CDTA canceled that route. We petitioned them last year really hard, and they added the route back. So the bus does come back in, okay? And then we went one step further because we are opening the homeless shelter within the next couple of weeks. CDTA was gracious enough to give us free navigator cards so people can come. They can get they're going to be making the route more than a couple of times a day, and then also picking them up and taking them to job interviews and whatever. So I will applaud CDTA for bending and accommodating us on that. Inmate service workers. I agree. You mentioned a couple people who've been there a long time. Again, change is a tough thing. So over the course of the last 18 months, I hired a young individual who's a recent graduate from Albany Law. She's a JD MSW, comes from a family history of addiction. I hired another young lady 2 weeks ago who's in recovery and was running a local shelter here. Most people would know her if I mentioned her name. And I have another one that's coming in this week, a young man. And so we are doing everything that you're asking. It's just taking a little time to get there. But again, who better to serve you than folks that have lived it, been there, done it. So I agree with you. Taking the steam away from you.
Allison, I'm happy.
The last time I did a case in Schenectady, a woman getting out, they explained to me that technically in terms of the timing, they had to release somebody at 12:01, but if they requested staying until 8 in the morning, there was no problem with that, and then we hooked up rides.
Especially for female.
So, unless there's anybody else who need like burning desire, I appreciated this. I appreciate both your presence. I appreciate everyone's presence here. I feel like every facility but Schenectady is present.
Yeah.
I don't know if Major Elwell is still there.
I don't know.
He's not the major, but I think he went to inmate service unit, but I don't know if he's still there. So, and I reached out to him, and I sent everything to my old information for him. So, I don't know who else is here. Oh, this is, she's from the Albany University? Yeah.
Yes, from UAlbany, I'm a sociologist. And I'm from UAlbany. My name is Karen Lascoco, and with my colleague here, Frankie Bailey, we are doing research in the community to find out about reentry and the services that are available and where there are issues falling through the cracks. And so we've been doing interviews with any type of service provider who might touch the life or could potentially touch the life of somebody who's trying to make a successful reentry. We're focused particularly on women because their issues are not as Ronnie knows and is trying to combat, women's issues are not always front and center. And we will eventually, as soon as we get through with this phase, also be talking directly, interviewing women who have had experience in the criminal justice system to get their firsthand perspective.
So for you then, that might interest you, the table in the back, that's an example of all the resources available that we would actually present to any women that would come to us for any of the resources that we would present them. That's actually an example of the back table of what we have available for them.
Terrific, thank you.
No problem.
And I also want to introduce Thomas. Can you please tell us? Oh, sorry, you going next? Go I didn't see you.
No, I just wanted to mention that we are working with the Center for Law and Justice. That's our starting point. We're documenting their next year 35 years of service to the community and looking at networks that they're involved in. So we will be putting together a history for them.
And she's also our board chair.
And we really hope that if we contact you and ask you for an interview, that you'll say yes.
Thomas, right there.
I am Thomas Kearney, Capital District Organizer for RAP, Release Aging People in Prison campaign. We're lobbying and pushing legislation for elder parole and time of parole so that people who have served their time can get out in a timely fashion.
So I know a lot of other great gems are in here. So Allison, you had something to say?
You indicated that this is the first of a number of meetings.
Yes, ma'am.
And you'll branch out to other topics because I think there are two real important things here. We don't have time to get into. One is prep for state prison.
Mm-hmm.
Lack of prep for state prison. And the other is family and children.
Yes. Oh, okay. Yeah.
From my perspective regarding state prison.
Oh yeah, we're definitely going to be looking to making this kind of like a series of conversations because you can't just talk about this forgotten population in 2 hours and think we now just, invented the wheel over. It's not going to happen.
Can I just ask one question about health to the people who are in county jails? When people who are detained, especially women, leave, do they now leave with Medicaid or do they leave with medication and a referral?
We enroll males and females all in the Affordable Health Care Act. We have our own, I guess on the outside they're called navigators. We have our own different name on the inside. We couldn't legally call them a navigator.
Right.
But yeah, they leave with Medicaid. Where our battle still is with state prisons, actually, because if somebody comes in that's fighting addiction, we get them clean and healthy and start to wean them off of, whether it's Suboxone, methadone, buprenorphine, whatever the case may be. What happens, now let's say they're 2 months from starting prison, we gotta wean them off that now, and they gotta go up to state prison, they gotta detox again and go up. So I think that's relatively inhumane in 2019 to be doing that. They're trying to make accommodations at the state level, but what do you think is stopping them? Dollars. And that's why I try to explain to everybody, that's the biggest misnomer when medical assisted treatment, all right? I've been able to do 243 people for $65,000 in strips. And I use strips because they disintegrate immediately, they're gone. And people were cheeking some of the pills. So the reality is it costs $66,000 a year. That's a 6 or 7 year old number to incarcerate a male or a female for 1 year. So it's very simple math. I mean, you don't have to be an economics major to figure out. It's easier to do math and get them clean and healthy and get them released and not come back than it is to detox again, go back upstate. Chances are when they get out, they'll crave that addiction again and go back to, what they knew. So it's, that's a big problem. And that's something that we're fighting for, even, and it sounds weird coming from me. They're like, you want what? I'm like, yeah. It's crazy, but we'll see. It's a work in progress.
And I next want to introduce everyone to Pat. Back.
Hi, my name is Pat Kea. I work for Merck Pharmaceuticals. I'm the community liaison for Merck. So I do education on topics that help folks who are working with people living with HIV, and in the past with hepatitis C. And I'm very happy to have been invited here and to help a little bit by providing some food. That's why the sign-in sheet, so everybody please sign. That's how we work. But I also want to thank Ronnie for inviting me. I remember a few years ago, I had gone to one of your programs, which was really very poignant for me to understand some of the issues. And anything, you know, I can do to bring back to my company to help with medication, making sure people have access. We have programs for free drug, and that's kind of what I'm here for, is to make sure you understand those programs. So if you're not on the Affordable Care Act and there's gaps, whatever we can do to help with that and any other education. So thank you for inviting me.
So, definitely have more conversations to be had, right? We need to start talking about what happens to the children when the mothers go in, what happens on these visits when men get, all the men's visiting side is packed and the women's visiting side isn't. Like, what does this all look like? And so, you know, and again, starting at arrest until they come home. So this is definitely a great start, I feel. So thank you, everyone. Sheriff Apple, I'm sorry if you felt like everything was being like you, but you're here, you're nice, and thank you for definitely. I've been trying to catch up with you, man, for a minute. I don't know how this never happened, but I'm gonna find out. So this is great. I'm really happy, and thank you for not being mad at me and my scooter, and thank you for coming.
Yes.
And thank you
everyone
all.
for coming
Thank
out
you.
tonight.
Thank you.
Thanks.